I'm going to talk for a little bit about the Joel 2 Army. Before we go any farther, this video is going to have a very limited appeal. It should only be dealing with those people who are really looking to go into the Army, and specifically God's Army. It is only for those who are in faith. So if the person is not wearing tzitzit, obviously I doubt they're going to be leading anything, at least on the inside of God's army. They may very well be on the other side, but not from the inside portion from the Creator. Most of the information we have on the army comes from two sources, and that is Joel, and the second one is Numbers 31. There's a little bit of other information out there, and I am not going to discuss the route that we take. I did a previous video on the Greater Exodus, what happens on the other side, and I discussed the route during that video. And so if you're wondering about the route, either go through that, or you can just read the prophets, the minor prophets. They will discuss the route, specifically Jeremiah 46 to the end, Obadiah, Nahum. Again, it's chock full when you start looking at the minor prophets, and obviously Jeremiah, major prophet. Isaiah talks a tremendous amount about what is happening. So let's, from that point, I'm going to describe some terms that are my terms. They are not in the Bible. Some terms are in the Bible, and I will differentiate those that are in the Bible and those that are not. However, there are some things that we just don't know as for terminology. So where I'm there, I'll try to differentiate that just to kind of help the listener understand the factors. I have two small graphs which I have put on just graph or on notebook papers. You'll find that I am the greatest artist that is in the kingdom very shortly. Let's first go through how things are made up in the army. How are they? If we're thinking about army terms, what's the battalion size? How are they encamped? And how are they set up? In Numbers 31, we hear that there is a 12,000 man army to go through Moab. That is not saying that is army size throughout the remainder of the Exodus, but certainly through Moab is a 12,000 man army made up of the 12 tribes. Levi, while they may have a warrior mentality, they deal with things inside the camp. They are not warriors, and therefore they are not going to be represented in the warrior class. But the remaining 12 tribes will have 1,000 from each tribe. So let's look at how that is set up. And it's easier to start from the smallest unit, which is, my term is a squad. That is not saying that is a biblical term, that is my term. Now, we have from Moses, Moses set up leaders over 10s, 50s, 100s, and 1000s. That's our military unit. So squad is, as I look at it, 10 soldiers. Okay? And so if you can think about it, and of course this is not the actual squad size, this is actually the platoon size, but just one row across would be a squad. Now you have one leader for those 10. It's not one leader over 10 people. 10 includes that leader. That's the only way the math works out. It's one of the great things about setting these things up and doing them this way. It's the only way it actually works. And he may not actually be over a full 10, because even the officers and captains, lieutenants, they come from those ranks, and so some of them will actually have less. But the maximum that what I will use, either a corporal or a sergeant, would have under him is 9 soldiers. That should be the maximum. Next, after the squad, should be made up of the platoon. Now, the platoon in a military thing as we normally deal with it is made up of 3 squads. In the army of the Creator, it's made up of 5. And so you have 50. They have 1 leader, and obviously they will have 5 of what I'll call either corporals or sergeants, whichever one you want to use for the terminology that's over the squad. I will use a term as lieutenant over top of 50s. And again, it is my own terminology. It is not a biblical term there. It is an undefined term in the Bible. But so that we understand who we're talking about and we can identify them, it's a little easier if we have terminology. So that's why I'm adding that in. Again, that is my term. That is not saying that's the Creator's term. The same thing is true with the word platoon. That is not a biblical term. That is my term so that we can try to figure out where these things are. And so you have this on 50. Now, at that point in time, these 50 should be joined by 2. And that's the first biblical term we have, and that is going to be an officer is over top of 100. In Numbers 31, an officer gives up the gold that they plunder. My term lieutenant, my term sergeant or corporal, and obviously the regular army guys, privates, whatever you want to say, they get to keep their plunder of gold. The officer is one that gives up that gold for the safety of his men. That is going to be Numbers 31. You can just read through it. It's right around it's in the 50s, late 50s as to where that is, and I'll add that in later. But he's over 2 groups of 50, so he has over 100. If you have an army size of 1,000 per tribe, that means there are 10 officers. And this is a horrible sketch, and the other was really bad, so this is really going to be bad. And I did it this way just because the spacing was so bad. I can only fit 5 right here, but it actually should be 10 across, and so I put them underneath it. Okay? But over top of each of these, again, you have, and this is really bad, I put the officer in red, and I put what I'll call the lieutenant with a small X over top of each squad. So again, here's a company, which is 2. 2 platoons. Each platoon has 5 squads in it. So the company here has 1 officer, 2 lieutenants, and of course it'll have 10 either sergeants or lieutenants. Now again, almost anybody who's got the military background is going to say, okay, well, we've got Alpha, Beta, Alpha, goodness, Bravo, man, that's putting me a ways out, Charlie, Delta, Echo, Foxtrot, right on down, for the actual names of the companies. And again, you're going to have 10, and then you have a captain. The captain is the highest man, highest ranking person per tribe. So that is the breakdown of how the army is actually situated. The next thing, if you're looking at this video, is okay, well, if I'm wanting to be somebody in the army, what type of weapon should I be looking at? And I'm not here to describe what that weapon should be. I'm just going to give you some considerations, and you choose. 1, the army in Joel is a very fast, mobile army. We don't worry about the enemy in any way, shape, or form. We could throw ourselves on one of their grenades and it will not hurt us. The missiles could come and land in our midst. They will not hurt us. We cannot be hurt. So thinking that we're going to outgun the enemy is impossible. They're going to have bigger guns as humans would see it, which is meaningless because we have the Creator who is the biggest of all the guns. So they've lost before they even thought about it. And one of the terminology that is used, the voice of the Creator goes before our army. If you go back and you will look right around where the 10 Commandments are, the Israelites we're petrified of the voice of the Creator. And we're hiding, basically saying, his voice will kill us. Stop it. That is going to be the same way for the enemy that we face. If his voice is going in front of us, they're going to be on the ground. Immediately going to be on the ground. And we see that. It tells us, they will be, the men will be curled up. Basically what we would think of as fetal position. Why is that? Because the voice is going in front of us. So, you're not needing this gigantic gun. And in fact, we are a mobile army. We are listed in Joel as the world's fastest army. So having this big heavy gun and heavy ammunition is not there to help you. The lighter, the better. Now, I won't describe what that would be, but if somebody wanted to use a very small caliber pistol, I would think that would be wise. The other thing is to look at the nations we will be going through: Jordan, Syria, Iraq, and seeing what they have available, because you might run out of ammunition. See what ammunition is used there. Choose your weapon accordingly. Most people have thought, okay, well, especially most our military, and anybody who has military training, or even a regular hunter, is going to know that there are two positions that give you the best shot, most accurate shot. They are laying down and seated. A mobile army isn't going to be doing either of those. So how good are you going to be with this rifle? If you're trying to think, I'm going to get a sniper rifle, I don't see that being a weapon that's going to be used in the Creator's army. Because that's kind of, I'm going to hide back here and I'll just get them at a distance. No, you're going to be up front and personal, because the Creator is taking care of things. So again, I think a pistol is probably the best weapon. Certainly, smaller firearms. Weight is a factor. We are going to be climbing over walls. I'll get to that here in just a minute. But look at what we do and then choose the weapon accordingly. And if you're the type of person that says, okay, well, I'm going to have multiple weapons, because we're going to, obviously we're going to fight at Armageddon, we're going to have to fight the army of Jordan, the army of Syria, the army of Iraq. Whether we're fighting the army of the people makes no difference at all to us. It's the same exact situation we're going to face. They're going to be in the same situation. The Creator is taking care of things. And if you are the type of person that says, okay, well, I'll have a pistol when I go through the homes, and then I will have a rifle when I deal with the army, that means you are carrying that rifle with you the whole time you're going through the homes too, because if it's important enough for you to have it, you will have it the whole time, because you're not going to be in a situation where you're going to be caught unprepared. So if you think you need 2 weapons or 3 weapons, you better carry 2 or 3 weapons with you at all times. It doesn't change. Go back and think of Gideon, how he deals with the people who are prepared. And again, I think it's smarter to have 1 weapon. Now you can say, well, what happens if it misfires? We're golden, okay? If you really want to go full bore, take a knife with you. All right, so that's the question, or the issue that I want to kind of address on weapons. Each person will choose their own weapon. Again, look through where we're going to go, on where and how you can be resupplied with the ammunition. Ammunition is obviously going to be a key central issue. And it will take a tremendous amount of ammunition as we go. That's also the nice thing about somebody who's thinking about something very small as a weapon. They're going to be more accurate with their shots. They're not going to be wasting ammunition. Anybody who goes in there saying, I need a AR-15, which is a great weapon, especially to put out multiple shots, it is not what you're going to want to be using, trying to think, oh, this is a spray type deal. There's no spray on weapons. I wouldn't want that in any of the groups that I'm dealing with. you should be dealing with the actual target, directly on target. The other issue is, as we're going through, what is the important thing? Now again, the Creator has given us a job. He has defined that job. We will do what He has told us to do. If you have questions on what that job is, review Numbers 31. And in all the detail that is there, and there's a tremendous amount of detail as to what we will do. If you cannot do what is required, don't join the Army. Or, more specifically, ask for the Creator to change your heart to accept what must be done. He tells us we will do. We are servants. But it's not just that issue that we are doing. We are also rescuing people. Specifically, the exiles from Zechariah 14. We have women, we have men, there will probably be children that have been taken prisoners, and we are there to rescue them. So anyone who is Israeli, they are to be saved and rescued. And I can tell you that I would like at the end of every single day's campaign to have a count of that, how many people have been rescued. And we will celebrate for everyone rescued. You should also review Numbers 31 as to the procedure of how to get back into the camp once you have been out and doing the job of a warrior. You have to be cleansed on the third and the seventh day, doing a mikvah, and then you can go back in. It is the same should you bring in an exile, or what I will say for purposes of this video, which is going on YouTube, another entity from those lands. And you can read Numbers 31 to figure out who and or what that entity will be. Animals, humans, whatever. They have to go through the same 7-day process, and if there's plunder, gold, silver, whatever, that also has to be cleansed through a defined process. And that which can be burned should be burned, and otherwise, and other things should be washed with water. So, if you find a gold coin, it's going to go in the fire to come into the camp. If you're an officer or a captain, that goes through the fire, then it goes to the water, and then it goes to the Messiah. It does not stay with us. Since the Messiah will return at the end of the Exodus, you keep that and have it ready to be given to the Messiah. The exception of that, obviously, is first fruits, which most of us would think about Jericho. Everything in Jericho goes to the Messiah. The same exact thing will be true when we go through the first city is first fruits. Everything there goes to the Messiah. There is no plunder there. It all goes to the Messiah. After that, we can deal with it. But during that particular town or village, which I could probably almost even name, I believe it's certainly going to be in Edom, which is Lower Jordan, maybe northwest section of Saudi Arabia, but I believe it's going to be Aqaba, Jordan, which will be first fruits. Nobody takes anything out of the Aqaba other than putting it into a truck or something that is delivered to the Messiah. Everything is collected. Nobody can bring anything and try to get it for themselves. And guess what? We have Acham's sin. Don't try to repeat that. Just put it there. We're going to have cities after that. You don't have to worry about it. We'll take care. If you're thinking, oh, well, this is really pretty. Well, guess what? There's going to be a lot of places after that. You don't have to worry about it. Just put it aside. You'll have plenty. One of the amazing terms of this army is how they go through. Obviously, it is made up and composed mostly of those of us who are the exiles from the 10 tribes. The leader and I use that term very loosely, but I'm saying the leader of the 10 tribes is Joseph, or Ephraim. And so Joseph is actually used in Joel. And actually I should say of Obadiah. And it says in Obadiah 1:18, Jacob is a fire and Joseph is a flame and Esau is stubble. In Joel 2:3 we have paradise is before it, desolation is behind it. So we're leaving nothing behind. Never forget there is a specific job that is actually not going to be done by us as part of the army, but it's going to be done by those who come behind us, which may very well be made up of those who are from the tribe of Levi. And certainly, I would hope others in our group. And that is the destruction of the temples and the places of worship. So, if we see a church, it is to be destroyed. If we see a mosque, it is to be destroyed. If it has wood, whether mosques usually don't have that much other than the crescent moon on top of the spire, those things are burned. If it's got wood, it's burned. The building is utterly destroyed. So if you look at something, you say, wow, that's a pretty chandelier. I'd like to have that in my home if I could just keep it. Too bad. It gets destroyed. There's nothing that we're using out of there. It is utterly destroyed. Those places are totally off limits for us. And again, the army really isn't the one dealing with that, or those buildings. Those are things coming behind us. And again, I would think that's most likely the Levites who are destroying that. I doubt we'll have that type of ordinance to really do it. Hopefully we can, but I would think physical destruction is really what's dealt with for each of those buildings, physically destroyed, put down to the ground. Then the next issue comes in is how do we move? And Joel really defines that, but our Bible translations, as anybody who has been in this faith for a while realizes, are horrifying. I love to go back and look at the Greek Septuagint. Again, we can't look at the Samaritan when it comes to Joel, but we can look at the Greek Septuagint. In Joel 2 and 4, if you read your Bible before going through the interlinear, you're going to think, oh, it's like birds we appear. It's like horses we appear. Actually, the term used is swallow, a bird. Birds were appearing, i.e. fast. And they appear like a vehicle, a stretched out steed or vehicle they run. That's actually the definition if you go through and look at the interlinear. It's a stretched out type of vehicle. I have my opinion of how that will be. We will learn because, again, there is an angel that's going to lead us, and he will define how things are done. I would hope that we go by tractor trailers, because you can put an entire platoon of 50 men inside the back of the tractor trailer and just kind of go and drop them off. That's fast. And have another one behind them to pick them up. And so as we go through the housing, anybody who lives in the country, and I used to do some politics when I was younger, or a couple years ago. And those type of things, if you have a driver dropping you up to each house, that's really a very helpful event. I would certainly hope that's how we do it. So just, again, I'm not saying that's correct. Does it fit with what is given? I believe it does. That doesn't mean that's what it'll be. But I think, just drive the tractor trailer and just go up to the homes, do the job that needs to be done. Have another one coming up to pick people up. And that way, nothing slows down. You go up and down through the road and, you have 50 homes, a man per home, easy. You have another truck coming to pick everybody up, man per home, easy. And obviously the plunder. Joel 2:5, sounds like chariots, they skip, dance, or leap. All those are through the wording there. Over the tops of mountains, like the noise of a flashing point of a spear. Supernatural fire. Fire or God's anger was the actual definition there. Devours the stubble like a strong nation people set in order for battle. Like strong men, they move quickly. Like a champion, they climb the wall. great men on the road, which the road could also be moral character, and do not break from the path or way of living. Also could be even caravans. Joel 2:8. They don't crowd their brother, so give each person their space to do their thing. Strong men on the road, though the weapons or missiles, I love that. That is the actual definition for missiles. They fall on, they are not cut or injured by violence. So if we meet up an army, who cares? I hate even saying it. Still do your job. If your job's a house in front of you and you have the army right there, do the house first. The army will still be there. They can't touch you. We have the Creator do what He's telling us to do first. In the city, they rush back and forth on the wall. They run into houses. They go up at the windows. Window actually could even be a hole in the wall. And they enter like a thief. So there's our definition of how we deal with items as we go and move. Again, this was and has been meant to be a very short video, so I'm not going to take too much time. Just some things to think about as to if you are really thinking that, this is my calling, what type of weapon should I have? I think that's a factor. What should I be doing? What type of exercises should I be doing to prepare? Realistically, I think walking is, doing forced marches, that's what you're looking for. If you live around the mountains, do a hike up a mountain. It's great exercise. I'll leave it at that. I've been doing some push-ups. I enjoy some push-ups. But mostly I think walking, and that's really what we're looking at. I think that speed's going to really come from the vehicles as I see it. And I see that because, again, it says that, that drawn-out steed or vehicle. So, just again, something to think about. And we'll go from there. Thank you.